So I heard that you had a very productive and interesting discussion. Is that, yeah? A lot of things come out. Yeah. I think there's so much we can learn from each other when we really open up and talk honestly, you know. And we often see, boy, everybody else has the same thing, problems that I do, and you know, some people have figured them out, and then we can learn, you know, hear from them how they figured out those difficulties, and we can share what we figured out, and it really helps make Dharma friendships, yeah, where we don't just chit-chat about the weather and the food, but talk about the Dharma and learn from each other. So, this afternoon, we're going to continue on with your favorite topic, anger. Yeah. So let's just start with a few minutes of watching our breath, letting the mind settle down. So I left off this morning talking about the importance of learning how to evaluate our own actions, yeah, instead of just waiting for other people to tell us who we are and if we're acting properly or not. Because I don't know if you've had this situation, but I've had the situation where, really interesting story, where within a half an hour, one person came and told me about one thing and said, "You're doing a fantastic job." And a half an hour later, another person came and commented on the same thing and said, "You're really messing up." So if, you know, how we feel about ourselves depends on praise and blame, approval or disapproval, then we get really confused because which one am I? Yeah, I just got two very opposite, you know, renditions, two very opposite kinds of feedback about the same thing. So what's important there, and we shouldn't wait until this kind of incident happens, is to really learn to check our own motivation, know why we're doing something, and make sure it's a good motivation. And then if we have a good motivation and people praise us, that's nice, but we don't need it. If people blame us, we don't get upset because we know why we did something. On the other hand, you know, and what we did was good. On the other hand, if we had a rotten motivation and somebody praises us, we may feel, oh, good, yeah, but actually we've created negative karma. Yeah, and then if somebody else calls us out on our rotten motivation, then we get upset. Oh, I didn't do that, you know, and we get into the denying and blame game that we talked about this morning. So the thing is, you know, it's helpful to hear other people's perspectives about our behavior. It can give us information, and then it helps us check up our own motivations. But we're the ones who really know why we do something, you know, although sometimes we don't know why we do something. Have you ever had that happen? You do something and then you go, what in the world was I thinking? You know? And then some things we can't even figure out what our actual motivation was until maybe a year or 2 or 5 years later. This happens as well. Yeah. But as much as we can to, you know, to be in tune with what is moving us, what our intentions are. Okay. Another thing about criticism is very often we interpret something someone says as criticism when it was not meant as criticism. Yeah. And this is often because we are super sensitive. Yeah. We've talked about our buttons before, have we, in this class? I can't remember what I said to who, because I'm teaching in many different places. But, you know, we all have buttons, things that we're sensitive about. Yeah, and we expect other people to know what our buttons are and not push them. But our buttons are big, and they say, do not push, which just draws more attention to them. And then somebody doesn't even intend to push them, but they just walk by. But the disturbance of the air on our button sets off the alarm. Okay. So it's good to, really look at what am I sensitive about. Yeah. Some people are sensitive about their appearance. Yeah. Some people are sensitive about being right. Some people are sensitive about being heard. Yeah. We have all sorts of different sensitivities. Some people are sensitive about their golf game. Yeah. But to know our sensitivities and then, not react when so intensely when somebody without an intention to push them pushes them. Or even if somebody intends to push our buttons, why do we have to react so strongly? Yeah. Story time. So, okay, so if you remember, if you were anything like me when you were a teenager, you hated when your parents told you what to wear. It was just interfering with your ability to choose your own clothes and be an independent adult. And so at one point, my brother was getting married, and my parents asked me to come back. I was already a nun by that point. And we were sitting around at breakfast. I was talking with my mom, my future sister-in-law, and my sister. And my mom said, because they had asked me to stand up in the wedding, okay? And so my mom said, I've chosen a very nice maroon colored long dress for you to wear, yeah, at the wedding. And I said, okay. And then the conversation continued. And after that, my sister and my future sister-in-law said to me, we don't believe that you just accepted her telling you what to wear when you're an adult. And I sat back and I thought, well, the difference is that now I don't have to defend my independence as an adult. I know I'm an adult. If she tells me what to wear and it makes her happy, I'll wear it. Yeah? So there was a change in my mind where something that would have sparked my indignation before now didn't. So, as we change our mind and ask ourselves, why am I so sensitive about this, that, or the other thing? And, very often conclude, I don't really need to be that sensitive about it. It's not really a big deal. Yeah? Then that solves a lot of problems. Yeah? Especially, I don't know if your family dinners resemble any ones that I've been to, where two people in the family kind of harp on each other. They know how to push each other's buttons, and it happens, every family dinner. Yeah? So if we're one of those people involved in it, and we should check, are we wanting to push somebody else's buttons and antagonize them? And if so, what's the use of doing that? And if we're on the other side and we're the sensitive one, and somebody says something to us that they know we're sensitive about, if we really think about it, we can dissolve that sensitivity because really it's not a big deal. Yeah. Okay, another example. This also happened when I was staying with my parents as a nun, and my mom had asked me to do something. I can't even remember what it was at this time. And I did it, what I thought was okay, but she had wanted me to do something slightly different. So she started to say, I thought you were a really intelligent person, and that, when you were doing this, you would do it this way. And, you didn't do it that way at all, and you really wasted an opportunity. So I was getting scolded, okay? Now, I'm normally somebody who, like everybody else, I don't like being criticized or scolded by your mother when you're an adult, okay? So I said to her, well, Mom, this is really too bad for you. You have a really dumb daughter, yeah, who just doesn't think about those things. And, what can you do about it? And that stopped the whole thing. She didn't respond after that. Yeah. If I had gone into defensive mode about, well, I did it the way I thought was best, and anyway, you didn't tell me you wanted it done this way, so next time tell me how you want it done, then I'll do it the way you want. I didn't go into defensive mode. I just made it into a joke because it was something that was so small. Yeah. And if it was something big, yeah, sometimes why argue about it? Yeah. Okay. So just to be on the lookout for buttons and sensitivities, and watch how easily we start to defend ourselves. How any small thing is, a rebuttal of our wisdom and our independence and our whatever it is we're holding on to. And it's just so sensitive, and really ask ourselves, why is that such a big deal to me? Yeah, okay, I'm an adult. She tells me what to wear. So what? Makes her happy. I wear it. Finished. Okay. So don't see criticism where there isn't criticism. And sometimes where there is criticism, it doesn't mean that we have to defend ourselves. Yeah. We can just say, okay, you know, if that way's important, I'll do it your way. Finished. Okay, another story. I was editing a book about a conference. The people in the conference had asked me to do it, and I did it in a way that I thought was really good because I shortened the presenters' presentations to make room for the response of the person who was the expert in this conference. So I felt good about what I did. I turned it into the publisher. Some of the people in this conference went behind my back and contacted the publisher directly and asked for the manuscript, and the publisher foolishly gave it to them, realizing that that's not what you do as a publisher, and the conference people that that's not what you do regarding somebody else's manuscript. So I was mad, because they didn't like, not only did they go behind my back, but they didn't like the way I had edited the papers from the conference, because they wanted their papers to take up more room. Oh, these egotistical people, they don't appreciate what I've done. I work so hard. This is such an important conference, and people need to hear the results of it. And they just, went behind my back. Why do they have to go? I was pissed. Okay, excuse my French. Okay, so I was really mad. And of course, I ruminated about it and went over it again and again in my mind about so-and-so, went to the publisher and said this and that, and then blah, 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 and then they did this. And you know how you ruminate and you go over the situation again and again and again, each time proving to yourself how wrong the other people are and how right you are. Yeah, anybody know what I'm talking about? So inside here, there is a judge, there is a jury, and there is a prosecutor. The person you're mad at doesn't have a defense lawyer because they are guilty automatically. No defending what they did. Okay? And so you just go round and around in that court case, and I'm right and they're wrong. Okay, so this situation took place in the US, and afterwards I was going to Dharamsala for His Holiness Dalai Lama's teachings. And, His Holiness talks about, love and compassion and forgiveness and these kinds of things. So one day after the teachings, I was walking back to where I was staying, ruminating again, instead of thinking about the teachings, I was thinking for the 1,000,000th and 500,000th time about how unfair this conflict was. And then all of a sudden, I stopped and I thought, how many people in this world are upset by this situation? Yeah. One. And I thought, over 8 million sentient beings, and one is all wigged out about this. Maybe it's not so important. Yeah, maybe I can just stop ruminating and deal with the situation in a kind way instead of, gathering the troops to bombard them and tell them off. Okay, so that really yeah, made me stop. And why do I make such big deals about things? Well, because they concern the center of the universe. So that makes it a big deal. But for all the other 7,999,999,999 sentient human beings, they don't care. Yeah. So why don't I just relax? Yeah. So the book didn't get published. Yeah. I gave them back the manuscript and I said, I did my part. If you don't like it, you can find somebody else to do it in a way that you approve of. So it didn't get published. But I later worked on another book where I included all the things that the expert had said in this conference in the other book. So it did get, the information did get out there. Yeah. They weren't, the other people weren't opposed to what the expert had to say being in print. They just wanted their presentations not to be abbreviated. Yeah. But I abbreviated them. Okay. So, I'm sure each of you have many stories like that. And, to really think back and how much our tendency to be sensitive and our tendency towards anger really makes us miserable when there's no need to be miserable. Yeah, we don't really need to make a big deal about some of these things. Yeah. Okay. And even if somebody does mean to hurt our feelings and, insults us or criticizes us, there's no rule that says we have to be upset about it. Yeah, we feel like if somebody criticizes us, that, there is a rule in the universe that if somebody criticizes me, I have to be really, really upset because it's unfair. There's no rule in the universe that says that. It's completely my choice if I want to get upset or not. I have a choice in the matter. I don't have to be upset. Mm-hmm. So to be, think about this. Take out in your meditation situations that you've had in the past where you got upset or angry, and then just kind of go over them in your mind, see what it was that you were sensitive about, and then ask yourself, is that really something important where I have to defend myself? Yeah. One of my friends was going to a marriage counselor with her husband because they weren't getting along. And let me remember exactly how it goes. Yeah. So they weren't getting along. They went to a counselor and she was telling her side of the story and he was telling his side of the story. And he was really upset and, took the opportunity in front of the marriage counselor to really lay out what all of her faults and what he really did not like and what was problematic for him in the marriage. And he really, was quite strong about this. And the counselor listened. And then afterwards, the counselor said, Stuart, you can either love your wife or criticize her. It's up to you. Or maybe he said, you can either love your wife and have a happy marriage, or continue to criticize her and have the results of that. Yeah, that kind of stopped him in his tracks. Yeah, because he thought, what is actually more important to me? You know, laying out my whole list of complaints or having a good marriage, you know, because he loved her, he saw her good qualities. Yeah. So that was like a real changing point when they were getting counseling. Okay, then there's, you know, when our feelings are hurt and, you know, really hurt very badly, like somebody betrays our trust. Have you ever noticed that when your trust is betrayed, you feel like no one else has ever experienced the betrayal of trust as bad as this? Yeah? Who has had their trust betrayed? Oh, everybody except two people. The two of you. Never? Well, we'll fix that. No, actually, we don't even have to try and fix it because life makes this happen. Yeah? Doesn't it? I mean, did you see? Raise your hand if you've had your trust betrayed. Look, is this an unusual event in samsara? It's not. But when our trust is betrayed, I don't know about you, I'm so hurt, and I feel nobody else has ever experienced some kind of betrayal like this. Impossible. Okay? And then I say, they need to recognize what they've done and apologize. Because I am not going to forgive them until they apologize. Because this betrayal is just too much. Okay, so I have the script written for their apology. How, you know, because they have to give a sincere apology, not just where they say, I'm sorry you felt bad, because that's not an apology for what they did. They're just saying, I'm sorry, you know, that they're sorry I felt bad. Well, too bad I feel bad, so, you know. So what they're supposed to do to apologize, you know, is first of all realize that they committed a very grave sin. Yeah, sin is another word that I think, together with fault and blame, needs to be eliminated from the English language, except when somebody's betrayed my trust. Then they have committed a very serious sin. Okay. So, how should they apologize? They come in that door on their hands and knees. Yeah. Have you seen in Mexico the Church of the Saint Guadalupe, how all the people walk on their knees to go up to the door of the church, you know, confessing their, you know, grave sins or whatever it is. So a person should come not just on his knees, but on his hands and knees. Yeah. Walking, crawling slowly, beating his chest. Culpa mea, culpa mea. I offended you. It's all my fault. Oh, this is terrible. I feel so bad. Oh, what was me? I feel so bad because I betrayed your trust. On and on, repeating that again and again, crawling all the way up here, you know, beating their chest with repentance. And they get up here and they look at me and I say, I'll think about it. Oh, wouldn't that be great? You know, let them stew for a while in their regret. Okay, so it sure would be nice if people did that when they broke trust, don't you think? Yeah, I mean, that's the least they can do. But when you think about it, okay, until they do that, any apology less than that is not a true apology. So I am going to hold on to my anger until they realize their dreadful sin and apologize like that. Okay? I'm going to hold on to my anger and they will suffer. Okay. So I'm holding on to my anger. Who's suffering? Me. I'm miserable. You know, I'm the one who's angry and miserable. Yeah, the other person, they're living their life. They're riding a bicycle in the countryside, going to the beach, going out with their friends. Who's suffering when I hold a grudge? Me. Yeah. And yet, it's so amazing how we hold on to our grudges and will not forgive because, yeah, we confuse forgiving with saying that what the other person did is okay. Yeah. Forgiving does not mean what they did was okay. It means I'm tired of being angry about it and I'm putting down my anger. So if I forgive, I'm the one who benefits. Yeah. The other person, you know, they still have to deal with their karma and they have to think about what they did and so on. But when I stop being angry, I'm the one who now can go to sleep and sleep peacefully. Whereas when I hold on to a grudge, I'm totally miserable. Plus, every time I see the person, you know, something inside me goes like this, okay? Okay, another story time, this time about forgiveness. Yeah, because I think forgiveness is really important. So I was in Israel. It was a while ago. It was maybe like around the year 2000. So it was, you know, they had had the intifadas already, but it wasn't like, you know, what's happening now, quite that bad. But just a little bit background of the country of Israel. My psychological diagnosis is that everybody, and I'm not a psychiatrist, but you know, who cares? I can still diagnose people, you know, right? Don't you diagnose people? They're passive aggressive, they're schizophrenic, they're, you know, manic depressive, whatever it is. Okay. But that really is a country where most people have PTSD. Yeah, because it's a country where, especially in the year 2000, you know, where there were a lot of people who were Holocaust survivors who had fled Europe after the war was over and gone to Israel, but they were still traumatized. And then there's the generational trauma that gets passed down to the kids. Not as intensely as the parents feel it, but it's still there. Okay. And then plus, everybody in Israel, men and women, have to go in the army. Yeah, everybody goes in the army. And then there's always bombings in the country, or there's an intifada in Gaza, and then they have to go in and, do what soldiers do that I don't approve of, but anyway, they do it. And it's quite traumatic for young people to be engaged in war and in having to kill people and sometimes rescue people. One young man told me about going into where was it? Ethiopia, because there were some Jews in Ethiopia, one of the lost tribes, people think, and they wanted to pick up those people and bring them to Israel. But of course, they had to do it at night and land the plane and get all the people and bring them back. And another time he had to go into Lebanon and do some kind of undercover thing. And, I could tell by the way he was talking, I mean, this really affected people. Okay, so you have a whole country of people who are super sensitive about persecution. Yeah. Because the Jews say, we've existed 4,000 years, and for 4,000 years we've been persecuted. So you grow up with that kind of thought. Yeah. Anybody here from a Jewish background? Anybody? Only me? Yeah, I'm telling you what it's like. Okay. So I was leading a retreat at one kibbutz, and it was about anger, and we got into the whole topic of forgiveness. And I led a meditation. Okay, everybody is familiar with Auschwitz, right? Yeah, the concentration camp in Poland. So I led a meditation where we imagined going into Auschwitz after the war, where things were cleaned up. There weren't dead bodies everywhere. But just if you've ever been to a concentration camp, the energy there, you don't need dead bodies. The energy there is just amazing. So what we imagined going in there, going into the barracks, and then imagining in our whole trip to Auschwitz that Chenrezig was coming with us. Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion. Where's Chenrezig? Chenrezig. 4-armed, 1,000 armed, 2-armed, it doesn't matter. Okay? Chenrezig comes with us as we go into Auschwitz. And we get, in the meditation, we're in the barracks where the people are imprisoned and sleep one on top of another. And we're with Chenrezig, and we forgive. And we say Om Mani Padme Hum and radiate compassion that fills the barracks and purifies the whole place. Yeah. Then we go into maybe the medical facility where they did experiments on human beings. Same thing. We chant Om Mani Padme Hum together with Chenrezig. We radiate light and purify the medical facility. Yeah. Then we go to the gas chambers where people were gassed upon entering. Same thing. Yeah. We're with Chenrezig. Chenrezig emanates light. We do too, purifying the place. Then we go to the cremation places where they burn the bodies. Did the same visualization. Yeah, it was it was a forgiveness meditation. Forgiving, having compassion, not only for the people who died in Auschwitz, but compassion for the guards, compassion for the Nazis, the people whose minds were so distorted and convoluted that they did this to other human beings. Yeah, so compassion for everybody, not just one side of it, but everybody. And it was a really powerful meditation, really healing for people. Yeah. So this is something you can do if there's situations where you're still holding a lot of fear or anger or whatever you're holding, go imagine the situation again. And Chenrezig is there. And just as Chenrezig has compassion for everybody in the situation, you also have compassion for everybody. And you imagine Chenrezig, and at Chenrezig at your heart, you radiate that light, and it purifies everybody in that situation that you're holding on to. So this situation could be something you're afraid of happening in the future, or it could be something that happened to you in the past that really weighs on your heart. Yeah. And you just go in and forgive and purify. Okay? So there's something very powerful about forgiveness. Yeah. Certainly, when we did this meditation in Israel, we were not saying that what the Nazis did was okay. Yeah. You can forgive and still say what somebody did was horrible. But that doesn't mean you have to hate them forever and ever. Yeah. It doesn't mean you have to hold on to your anger and hate them, because that hatred only makes you suffer and only interferes with your spiritual practice. It doesn't change the other person's mind. Okay? Is this making some sense to people? Yeah. Do you think that some of that stuff you've been holding on to for a long time, maybe you could loosen up about a little bit? Yeah. So just, try this. Where there's another meditation session after dinner. Yeah, do this. Pick a situation in your life, or a situation, where you have fear or hatred or whatever it is. Okay. So let me pause here. People may have comments or questions about this, what we've done.
Thank you. I have a question that relates pretty much to what you just described. Mm-hmm. Let's take an imaginable situation where one witnesses a crime, say sexual abuse. So it's not related to me or to myself. And it's also, for example, related to someone I don't know, so I'm also not attached to neither of the people involved. Mm-hmm. And later on, I might practice compassion and forgive the person who committed the crime. However, in the moment, anger does arise. Mm-hmm. And my question is whether this anger plant the seed of harmful karma in that moment.
Seeds of harmful
karma.
Harmful karma. Anger itself is going to leave some trace, but it doesn't become the full karma of malice. Remember, one of the mental ones, unless we really get into thinking how to retaliate. Okay? But sometimes it happens in our mind, there's a flash of anger, and then we don't go more than that. So it leaves some trace, but it's not a karma that's going to be strong enough to throw a rebirth. Yeah. But again, make sure it doesn't last for long. Okay.
Yeah, this is a story about you. I've been following your teachings for some time, some years now. And in the last years, you always talk about your Dani. About Dani.
About Dani.
About Dani.
Yes. Dear Dani.
There's no teaching going by and people about Dani. And at first I thought, oh, well, okay, that's funny. But every time you tell stories about you and Dani, it made me feel, oh, you're so arrogant towards him, towards the people who voted for him. And I get more angry and angry that, oh, she's a super teacher, and I really love what you do, and it helps me a lot. But this time, please, no, Donnie, no. And then there go Donnie again. And each time, it really hurts when you talk about that.
Okay.
I don't really know whether that's how you say it, but what that pain is. What my pain is when you talk about Dani, but I feel pain when you talk about Dani, and
Okay.
Could you tell what that is? Help me. And stop talking.
Yeah. Every so often I get these kind of emails about, why are you talking about politics? It sounds like you're so angry. You should be talking about Buddhism, and light and love and bliss. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Okay. And instead, you're talking about this beep, beep, beep who's running the country and destroying it. Like, so one thing, for you to just question is why does that disturb you? Is it because you, it feels to you like I'm criticizing somebody, and you don't want somebody who's teaching the Dharma to go around criticizing, that somehow it's transgressing your values of, people who practice Dharma shouldn't point out the faults of other people.
Yeah, it's more, you don't need it. The teachings are perfect. You don't need to bash on.
It's true, I don't need to give that example. The reason I do is because I want to point out a certain behavior, and he very often illustrates that behavior, and people have seen that behavior, so they know what I'm talking about. If I give another example about, oh, my friend Joe Blow 17 years ago, lied up, down, and across, it doesn't hit people in the same way. Yeah, to see if let's say I'm talking about the harmfulness of lying. You know, when you talk about a politician lying, people can see very vividly the defects of lying. So that's why I do it. Okay. But I also, yeah, talk about how I generate compassion for Donnie. Yeah. Have you heard? Have you heard when I've talked about that, how I generate compassion for him?
Yes, yesterday morning.
Yeah, but also the teachings when you listen online. Okay. Because so many people in the country are really scared, really angry, yeah, and upset. And people write me all the time saying, how do I deal with what is happening in the US? You know, because they're really upset with his policies. Yeah. And so when they say about that, you know, I say, yeah, I'm upset with the policies too, because his policies very much go against my values. Yeah. And then I talk about how I develop compassion for him. So you're going to get that. Okay. So there's a few ways I do it. One way is because, you know, a person that you're mad at or a person you disapprove of, they haven't always been that way. So I sometimes think of Donnie when he was a baby. Yeah, with his orange hair. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Yeah, born with orange hair. Yeah, because I think, you know, he was once a baby. And when we see babies, babies are all adorable, aren't they? Yeah, babies are adorable. They're like these little beings who, you know, they just ooze out adorableness or adorability. Yeah, and you want to, you know, you want to play with them. They, you know, there's a certain kind of innocence in babies because you know, they haven't grown up yet, and they're cute, and you know, we don't hate babies, you know, unless maybe you're trying to sleep and they're crying and you're not the parents. But, or sometimes you are the parents. But anyway, you know, so I think he was once an adorable little baby. So the person that he is now, who is acting this way with behavior that I find really so detrimental, so harmful to other people, he hasn't always been like that. Yeah. So if I think of him as a baby, yeah, I can have some compassion. And then I also think about if I had grown up in the situation that he had grown up in with his parents and his experiences in life and the karma he brought in from previous lives, I probably would be acting just as he's acting. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? If we had gone through the experiences somebody else had gone through, we might be doing the same things that we find rather disgusting when that person's doing it. And so then I remind myself that, you know, I have not eliminated my afflictions yet. I still have them. If I was put in the situation like his family was, I would become like him. So who am I to judge and criticize and hate? I can say that I disagree with his values, that I find the actions as harmful. So separating the person and the actions, that's really important. You criticize the actions, but not the person. Yeah. And, I could be acting just like him. So it's not up to me to judge and condemn him and have, my own prosecutor in my heart and judge and jury in my heart. So I don't hate him. I don't hate him, no. Yeah. In fact, you know what, one of my dreams, what I would really like to do? I would like to go and give a Dharma talk to the US Congress. Yeah, with Donnie, with, uh, Vancey. He's another trip. His actions too, my goodness. He's a trip, And I put Vlad in there. Yeah. And BB, not the dog BB. Yeah. I would put them all in. I would love to have the opportunity to talk about Dharma with these people, and see if there was, to find a situation in which they could relax enough to be open to hearing about compassion. Yeah, that's what I'd like to do. So, no, I don't hate them.
No, that was not my question.
Oh.
That was not on hatred.
That
It was on anger.
Anger.
And there's a difference between hate and anger.
The difference between hate and anger?
Well,
That's your question?
no, it's. Thank you. When you give the lectures and you talk about Dani, it feels like you're a little arrogant towards him. Or talking about Dani.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, you don't have to minimize him, or he's just a person. And it feels like I think, you think you're better than he is. That's the feeling I get, and that hurts me. I think, I don't want my teacher to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. So let me explain that it may appear as arrogant, but I'm talking from a viewpoint of ethics, just according to what the Buddha said. I'm not saying that I keep perfect ethics. I'm not saying that, because like I said, if I had been raised like him, I might be acting like him. Yeah, so how can I be arrogant and say, oh, I would never do what you do? Yeah, but I try and make it clear, and maybe my problem is I don't make it clear enough that I'm talking about the actions, not the person. Okay? Yeah, so I might talk about the lying, yeah, because he lies a lot. Do you agree that he lies a lot?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. Huh?
He's not my friend.
But why not? If you become his friend, he'll hire you. Yeah? And then you can work with dear Elon, Yeah. Yeah, I try and really talk about the behavior, because that behavior is the same thing we do, but maybe to a lesser degree, or maybe with the same negative intention, but it doesn't have the same harmful effects because we're doing that for just towards a few people, not towards a whole country or the whole world. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more on that. You mentioned doing a Dharma talk for Dani. That made me remember that during the what's the word in organization that he was, put into president, there was also this priest speaking from the church side, but that speech really made an imprint because she was really criticizing on his behavior actually already at that time. So I think you're not the only one.
I know I'm not the only one. Yeah, I didn't watch his second inauguration. Yeah, so I missed that.
It was a lot of laughs, so to say, if you could look at it from a distance. But again, the speech of the priest really made an impression,
Yeah.
really putting a different angle to it.
Yeah.
She tried to ask for compassion towards migrants.
Yeah, precisely.
She was.
She tried to tell Trump to find compassion for the migrants who are very afraid,
Yeah.
but they were sitting in the front row and just shaking their head, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was another pastor or priest after that who they were going to a church somewhere, and this one gave a talk about it was after he almost somebody was trying to kill him, and and she said you feel that you were saved from that by the grace of God, and so there are people in this country who are afraid, who are terrified that their families are going to get split up, that they're going to have to go back to a country where they could get killed, because they were refugees. And she talked about this again, having compassion for the migrants. Yeah, it wasn't the inauguration. Okay. Oh, okay. So it was after that. Yeah. And I thought what she said was beautiful, and she was courageous because he does not like that. Like most people, we don't like people saying negative stuff about us on TV. Yeah, but she did it. And I don't think it went, I don't know how much it went into him. Yeah. But I saw that Vance's wife took it in. She, understood it well. I don't know about Vance, though. So.
I have a question which was related to, I'm going to sit down here to this thing you brought up with arrogance, which I've been thinking about a lot recently. I've been thinking about that a lot recently, this arrogance that you have as a Dharma practitioner. Yeah, I've been that and more intensely than now, as a nun as well. And I thought, wow, for many years I was so convinced that I knew better than my family. Yeah. Because I knew about compassion. And they didn't really, I would help them, would be kind to them, but I knew better than them. And then I slowly, now started to realize that was really arrogant. I said, oh wow, now I've realized that. Now I'm better than the other Dharma practitioners. So seriously, I think, it's like a catch-22. When you believe something, then it comes with arrogance. How can you not do that? Because you know better than the person who doesn't believe that.
Just because you know better, it doesn't mean you have to be arrogant about it.
Yes. What's the difference?
What's the difference? It's a different state of mind. One is, for example, I'm repeating what the Buddha said, and I've thought about this, and it makes a lot of sense to me, and I want to share it with others. Okay. And the other one is, dear child, I will tell you the truth, and you should follow and think that I am the highest thing in the world and offer me presents and praise me. Okay, do you see the difference?
Yeah, I see that difference. But when I'm kind to my sister, and or hidden advice, but maybe do this with your daughter or whatever, because I know she cannot hear directly about the Buddha's teachings because she's not interested in it, so I do it skillfully, and it helps her. But even so, I know that I know better than she knows.
Yeah, you're not better than.
No, I know better than she knows. So, yeah, I think it's well, because I know about, yeah, exactly.
So if somebody is saying 2 and 2 equals 500, and you know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, are you better than that person? Or do you just have a piece of information that that person doesn't have?
So I know more than the other person.
Yeah. So is there anything wrong with that? I'm glad people know more than me. Yeah, because if I was the world's best, we would be in big trouble. Okay. So, but I don't think that those people, like I know nothing about electricity. Yeah, except how to flick the switch and change a light bulb. That's it. I know nothing about plumbing except how to flush the toilet. Yeah. I know nothing about how to construct this except how to get mad at the contractor. I'm so glad people are better than me. I don't think that just because they know more than me that they're arrogant. I want them to know more than me. Yeah, I really hope the contractor who's building the Buddha Hall knows more than me. Yeah. And if he shows me that he knows more than me, that's fine. When he tries to charge too much and cheat me, then I speak up. Okay. But yeah, just because somebody knows more doesn't mean they're arrogant. Yeah. Yeah. Aren't you happy other people know more than you in certain fields? Yeah. Do you see all those people as arrogant? No, just me. Oh.